started. Welcome to the League of Women Voters City Council Candidate Forum, both to those in the audience here tonight and to those on the YouTube live stream. I'm Cynthia White, Chair of the Bay Village Chapter. The League of Women Voters was formed 101 years ago, following a long battle to win the right to vote for women. For 101 years, we have been a nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization with membership open to both women and men. We are proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members of the public. The Bay League was formed in 1948 and has been in continuous operation ever since, providing impartial voting information and forums such as this one to the Bay Village community. A healthy democracy requires educated, informed voters, and that is why we are here tonight. We have two council races where two candidates are running for one seat. Lydia DeGeorge and Jim Strunk are competing in Ward 2, and Mike Greco and Gary Sharp are competing in Ward 3. We also have three unopposed council candidates: David Tadich for Ward 1, Paul Winsick for Ward 4, and Sarah Burns-Meyer for Council at Large. Paul Kumar is also running as unopposed for another term as mayor. Most of our focus tonight will be on the two opposed races because that is where we need to make a decision with our vote. We've invited the unopposed candidates to say a few words at the beginning of the forum because we think it is important for voters to know all of our community's elected leaders since their policy decisions affect all of us. We also think it is important for them to stay in touch with us so they know our concerns. We appreciate very much that you've taken the time to do that today. All questions must be submitted in writing. We will have runners moving through the audience throughout the forum to collect your question cards. Please make your questions short, clear, and legible. We have three league members at the table in front who will review the questions to avoid repetition, provide a diversity of topics, and assure appropriateness. Questions may be deemed inappropriate if they are not relevant or include excessively hostile or offensive language. You may direct your questions to one candidate, but the others may also choose to answer. We ask you to refrain from audible reactions during the forum so we have the most time possible for audience questions, and also so the live stream and video audiences can have a good quality experience. The recording is the property of the League of Women League of Women Voters, and no portion may be reproduced or used without our express written permission. Personal video recording is forbidden by league policy. The candidates each have a table in the hallway, and there is time available after the forum is adjourned until 9 o'clock to meet with them individually and ask any questions we were not able to get to within the time constraints of the forum. We are very fortunate to have as our moderator this evening Judith Weiss, Chapter Chair of the Rocky River League of Women Voters. Thank you very much for agreeing to help us tonight, Judith, and let's begin the forum.
Okay, is this working? Yes. Thank you, Cynthia, for your introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be your moderator tonight. And thank all of you for coming in order to be a more informed voter. This forum, as Cynthia explained, most of the rules, is going to run according to the well-established rules of the League of Women Voters. It is not a debate. It is an opportunity to hear and question candidates. Candidates should speak about their background and experience as well as what they hope to achieve if elected. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Time limits will be strictly enforced, and we have timers in the front of the room with little signs that will warn you when you have 30 seconds left and when it's time to stop. After the introductions, the questions will be asked, and we ask everybody in the audience, if you wish to put a question to one of the candidates, please write it on a card. We have runners along the sides, and just put up your hand and then a runner will hand you a card and you can write your question on it. We have time for 6 questions. Maybe we'll get to more. We have to finish at 8:30, however. You can go ahead and start writing now if you know what your question is, so that so we'll have a few questions ready to go by the time the first people have finished speaking. So we have 4 candidates tonight that are running unopposed. You may know some of these candidates as they have held office heretofore. We're giving them a chance to reintroduce themselves to you and to tell you why they wish to serve. So let's begin now with unopposed candidate for mayor, Paul Kumar.
Good evening. I would like to thank the League tonight for holding this forum. I think it's always very informative for the residents, and we really appreciate your efforts. I would also like to thank the residents for the opportunity to serve as your mayor. Bay Village is a special city made up of wonderful people, great parks, and quality schools. Together we have accomplished much over the last 4.5 years, but our work is not done. Current efforts include a zoning overlay, which is on a November ballot for your consideration. It would provide an optional set of rules for use in future development in commercial areas only. It would provide business property owners with a clear understanding of the city's collective visions from our master plan, which focuses on diversifying housing options and improving the look and walkability of commercial districts, creating a more vibrant town center while reflecting the character of Bay Village. Think of smaller and locally owned stores like Old Detroit Road and Rocky River. Also of importance, it provides the Planning Commission during their approval process with detailed definitions to shape projects and make sure they are respectful of adjacent structures. This includes the authority to limit the height of proposed buildings. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Our next unopposed candidate is David Tadich for Ward 1.
Good evening. Thanks for taking the time to come tonight. I'm the Ward 1 guy. I ran for my first term in council in 2001. And it was very successful. Today I'm council's senior member and still represent the ward. I'm chairman of the finance committee and the vice president of council. I value these roles and your constant support during this, my 10th term in office. During the next 2 years, one of my efforts will be to find ways to ensure that future homes blend with the surroundings and with their lot size. I will continue to work so that city projects will benefit all of us, and more importantly, will be affordable now and to those who come after. Thanks, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Tadich. Our next speaker is Peter Winsey, candidate for Ward 4.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm currently serving the second half of my second term, and I look forward to running unopposed for my third term. I've had the privilege of representing the residents of Ward 4. I welcome their calls, I take visits to their homes, and I try and work out any issues with the city and through the council. I'm really proud of the accomplishments that we've made in the past 4 years. I'm sure most of you know of these projects. I made a short list: the new bridge on Lake Road, the Columbia Road Bridge project over by the church, the Sled Hill Trail. If you walk down that, it's magnificent, takes you down to Bay Point. Reese Park, and all the improvements there, as well as Cahoon Park and Bradley Park Playground. A new software system for the finance committee, or the finance team, and also our brand new website. I hope you visited it. We have work to come. Bradley Road's currently under repair. The Cahoon Trail Bridge and a new pathway to the senior center is approved and will happen next year. And a new bridge on Ashton Lane. So there's many things that you'll hear about, hopefully, from the candidates. I'd like to thank my previous council members and also my current council. Our council president, Mr. Clark, has done a wonderful job leading us. It's a warning. Our great clerk of courts, Joan Kemper, does a beautiful job keeping us organized. Our law director, Barbara, helps us with insights and always takes the phone call. And Mayor Kumar has been wonderful, open, responsive, and very willing to work with council. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please stop out at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Winzig. I see I've gotten out of alphabetical order. I'm sorry. Our last unopposed candidate should have been the second, but anyhow. Sarah Burns, Mayor, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the League for sponsoring this event and all the good work that you do every year for us and for the community. Thank you also for everyone that's joining us this evening in person or virtually. Your time and attention to the affairs for the city are very appreciated. We've heard a lot about some of the projects that have been accomplished in the last few years in the city. I'm honored to be spending the last part of my my fourth year as a council member and look forward to the next 4 years. We have a lot of infrastructure projects that we've been working on and more to complete. My particular focus is on parks and recreation with the Cahoon Park Master Plan and items related to the Planning Commission. I also want to say thank you to members of the Planning Commission for all the good work that they put in over the last couple of years with working on the mixed-use zoning overlay. That is on the ballot this November. Please take a moment to research it, look at the website, look at all the materials on there. I personally was very happy to work on this project because I grew up in Bay. I'm a graduate of Bay High. My family is here now. I grew very tired of hearing about my friends' parents moving out of the city because there were no other housing options for them, moving to Avon. And this would allow for potential other options should the market bear it and allow it, and also to allow our existing business district to grow and thrive and be able to access funding to be able to make improvements to their property, to get loans and for to clear underwriting. So I'm excited for the potential and look forward to the next 4 years. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. So now we come to the part where everybody needs to listen sharp, because we have 2 candidates for each race in Ward 2 and Ward 3. And I have a couple of questions that have already been submitted. I want to remind you as we go, please refrain from applause, cheers, catcalls, anything that could interrupt the candidates in their giving their statements. So, let's see. I will begin with Ward 2 candidate. Oh no, I beg your pardon. You get to give opening statements. Each of you gets 1 minute, 2 minutes. I forget, 2 minutes. Sorry, there was some discussion about it. Okay, 2 minutes. Each one gets 2 minutes, and the first person to give an opening statement will be Lydia DeGeorge.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, the school district, colleagues, candidates, and residents. My husband Kevin and I have lived in Ward 2 for 34 years. We raised our 2 children in Ward 2. For 20 years, I owned a child care business, and for 20 years prior, I worked in retail, earning a district manager position. My professional achievements are important, but I base my candidacy on my council voting record, experience with city processes, understanding what is required of me, and my commitment to the residents of Ward 2. I have exercised fiscal responsibility with our budget, also known as mostly your tax dollars. Collectively, we have protected the financial health of the city and saved funds. We know how to sustain this progress, and that is why now is not the time to vote in a new strategy. My critical thinking skills are vital when serving Ward 2, especially since Council legislates over 100 effective resolutions, motions, and ordinances each year. I have completed sunshine law and ethics trainings. I am the first Bay Council member to share information via social media. I created the forum to generate ideas and benefit public discourse. I know that transparency equals a well-informed electorate. In an effort to understand, and prior to joining City Council, I was a 4-year dedicated attendee at over 200 committee, board, commission, and council meetings. I did not wait to attend meetings until I was running for council. By then I was already applying what I had learned, so it was with resident trust that they elected me to council in 2018. Tonight I will show you why I earned that seat and why I should retain that seat, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. DeGeorge. The second speaker will be a candidate for Ward 3, Mike Greco.
Good evening, everyone. Since I'm the newcomer here, I just want to introduce myself. I grew up in a small town east of Canton here, Louisville, Ohio, the youngest of 5 kids, and because of my hardworking parents, I was able to attend undergrad at Hiram College. I got my bachelor's in American History and Political Science. From there, I went to Kent State and got my master's in Public Administration with a concentration in local government function. From there, I accepted a position with the state of Ohio in juvenile corrections, and I was a budget and personnel officer. From there, I am currently the HR director for the city of Rocky River, and I am the chief hiring officer and policy maker for all of the city departments there. On top of that, I am the civil service secretary, and I am in charge of all of the hiring of our public safety personnel for our police and fire departments, from the step 1 of taking the test all the way through the job offer. I see the candidates all the way through the hiring process. Currently, right now, you are going to be sick and tired of me hearing, but I am focusing on the 4 S's. It is sewers, streets, sidewalks, and your safety. In regards to sewers, I wanted to make sure, as Ward 3 candidate, that there is enough money in there to maintain all of our sewer systems, being a coastal city along Lake Erie. For our streets, I want to make sure there is funding to make sure that they are clean, maintained, especially during weather events. For our sidewalks, I'm glad to see that our sidewalk program is up and running finally, and that I'd like to see them currently funded and through a 4-year cycle for each ward. And then finally, for the safety, I'd like to see our safety forces fully funded, fully trained, and fully equipped. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greco. The next speaker will be the candidate for Ward 2, James Strunk.
Hello, my name is Jim Strunk. I'd like to thank the Women League of Voters for putting this on and giving us the opportunity to speak and talk about ourselves. I am a 32-year Bay Village resident. I have 4 children. 3 of them went through the Bay school systems, and they're all doing well, and the 4th one is doing well too, but he was from a previous marriage. I started out my career working for Women's Federal Savings Bank in the accounting department. I put myself through night school and got my bachelor's degree from Baldwin Walls. I passed the CPA exam, and about a year and a half after that, or about a year, during that same time, I got married to my wife, who's in the audience, and we've enjoyed 32 years of marriage, and I started my accounting practice, and I've worked out of my house for the first 10 or so, 12 years. And I have my office now over in the clock tower on Dover Commons. And a lot of you know that. And I would thoroughly enjoy looking out the windows every day, watching people walk to Fragapanes, drive to Fragapanes, and enjoy themselves. I do well over 500 individual tax returns every year. I have about 113 businesses that I do their corporate returns. I help them manage their cash flow. I help them manage their budgets, and I do projections for them, and I do financial planning for individuals. So I think I can apply my financial skills and my problem-solving skills that I apply to my clients every day to the city operations in the council, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strunk. And now we will hear from the other candidate from Ward 3, Gary Sharp.
Hi, my name is Gary Sharp, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 3. My wife, myself, and my 2 kids, we've lived here in the city for 26 years. When I separated from the Navy in 1995, we came here from Maryland on a weekend to find a place, and almost every realtor we spoke to on the west side said Bay Village, Bay Village. So, living here, now watching my grandchildren raised here, there's a love for this city that comes from longevity and passion. My volunteering with the auxiliary police force is none other than just the fact that I want to give back. Security and safety are very important. Streets, sewers, but also the tree canopy. One of the things that we fell in love with about this city was the canopy. And something needs to be done. When I watch my neighbor's yard suffer from oak wilt, partly because trees are being trimmed during seasons that they shouldn't be. I called the city arborist this week because I had a question about my property, and the response I got was the arborist is no longer doing private property. To me, that's a problem. You know, our tree canopy is something that we have to protect. Hearing from candidates, I've lived here 26 years. I've had one candidate stop by my house during that time and ask me my opinion on something coming before council. That was Scott Polkamp, my neighbor. This communication is key. You guys are here tonight because you want more than just your streets plowed and your trash picked up. You're listening online for that same reason. Understanding that council members need to be out speaking, not on social media, but to their residents they represent, is what I want to bring. In sales, the worst thing you can ever hear is, that's the way we've always done it. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Sharp. Now we come to the portion where your questions, we hope, will be answered by each of the candidates. We are going to attempt to rotate the order in which we ask the candidates questions so that nobody has the advantage of being first or being last every time. We have a couple of questions from a couple of people who would like to know what is your opinion of the mixed-use zoning overlay ballot issue? And if it passes, how will it change the looks of the retail areas in Bay Village? And we'll put this question first to Mr. Strunk.
The mixed overlay, as far as I can, I've talked to a few other people and I've read it several times, I think provides the city an opportunity, or provides the commercial districts in Bay Village an opportunity to expand their buildings, maybe in the future restructure it, change the way it looks. It gives a lot of definitions as to what they can build and what they can't build. It's a little bit more clearly defined than what the existing zoning rules are, and it will give them the opportunity, for one, that they can, if they choose to, find funding and change the way their properties look and make it more comfortable for the residents. And what I was told is like the old Rocky River to Detroit Road, where the buildings are on the curb or on the sidewalk, and the parking's in the rear. And so that would be a total flip to what we see now. So that's my understanding of it, and I am in favor of it.
Thank you. The same question goes to Mr. Sharp. What is your opinion of the mixed-use zoning overlay and ballot issue? And if it passes, how will it change the looks of the retail areas in Bay Village?
I'll address the latter first. I mean, how it will change it, you're taking single-story structures and making them 55, 65 foot tall. And I think that what needs to be understood about mixed-use overlay is it's not a rubber stamp. It's giving developers an opportunity to apply to build those structures. Those applications still have to be reviewed by council, by the planning commission, and there's a lot more control in this verbiage that gives council the right to push back on these developers. What concerns me is that as I go door to door and walk my ward, most people that I talk to are not up to speed or not even aware of this zoning. And it's not, I mean, the city has the website, the city had the forum last week, and they're doing everything they can to educate. But again, I think it falls back on the individual council members to be out there and going door to door, because not everybody goes to the city website. Not everybody goes to the forums or listens on their computer to meetings at City Hall. This type of education, this type of change to the city skyscape, and I think our most beautiful skyscape, again, is our canopy. We have to make sure that residents are being heard, they're understanding what they're voting for, and that we, as council people, are out there delivering that message in person, door to door. In its current state right now, I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question goes to Mr. Greco. Your opinion of the mixed-use zoning overlay ballot issue, and how will it change the looks of the retail areas?
So as right now, I just want to state the facts. So right now I support the mixed-use overlay. And if I read it correctly, there's only 45-foot height restriction on it, not 55 to 60 feet like my opponent stated. The square footage is maxed out at 5,000 square feet. It's about the size of the Key Bank over there on the shopping plaza, so that'll be limited. There's a lot of talk online as well that this will be a mini Crocker Park. We don't need a Crocker Park because there's one 10 minutes away. What this allows us to do, this legislation that you'll be voting on, or ordinance, first of all, it will be updating the building codes. It's a safety issue. Some of those codes are dating back to the 50s and 60s. That's most important. Right now, the owners of those buildings can tear them down and build them up. What this overlay will do will allow the developers to submit plans to the Planning Commission if they'd like to put residential housing above the living quarter or the business section of the development. It also allowed to move the buildings closer to the sidewalks for more, for walkability, and then move the parking behind the buildings. So there's a lot of positive aspects to this. There's also restriction. The business district stays the same. It will not move into the residential area as well. So what you see is where it will stay. There are height restrictions and there are depth restrictions, which have doubled to move farther away from the residential living area as well if it's rebuilt by a new developer. So there are a lot of positive aspects to this, and I ask everybody, if you have any questions, please email me or call me, because I do respond within 24 to 48 hours. I get you your answer. And being door to door twice so far, I'm getting some positive feedback on this. So thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. DeGeorge, what's your opinion of the mixed-use zoning overlay ballot issue? Go ahead, please.
I think it's a good plan with respect to what the small business owners and managers express desires to have expanded opportunities within their centers. And the plan is also mindful that we didn't want anything major. The Planning Commission recommended and Council adopted a plan bearing that in mind, that the residents do not want commercial overdevelopment. It will change the look of Bay Village only if the property owner decides that they want to change the look of their shopping centers, in which case they can add a second level. The regulations of the mixed-use overlay strike the balance to permit residential growth within a commercial area, and it does show respect to size limits. It lays out parameters, design guidelines, height, scope, and additional requirements. The plan removes doubt about what can and cannot be built. The participants who provided input for the plan have done their jobs and led us to this point. I know residents who support rezoning and residents who do not, and the vote is all yours.
Thank you. We move on to the next question, which is about the city charter. It's going to be reviewed next year. What, if any, changes would you like to see in the charter? And we'll start this time with Mr. Strunk.
I am not being in council and have not gone through the city. I have not been privy to the deficits, the deficiencies in the city charter right now. But so I do not have any specific items that I would recommend that we need to change. But what I will say is that I will, if I am on council, I will review it and take recommendations and study the matter. Apply my skills as a CPA and in finance to help manage the city in the future on the charter.
Thank you. Ms. DeGeorge, what changes would you like to see in the charter, if any?
So the Charter Review Commission is a group of 9 electors appointed every 10 years by the mayor to review the 15 articles of our city charter. And the 2 things I would like them to address are a process for council vacancies. As some of you may recall, we had some questions and concerns that popped up when we had a vacancy earlier this year and we had an internal candidate. So I think that the commission needs to outline a process which could follow similarly along the lines of a mayoral vacancy during midterm. The other thing I would like the commission to review is the emergency clause as explained in Article 2 of our city charter, because it is often misunderstood. An emergency measure allows for whatever ordinance or resolution that was just passed to become effective immediately instead of waiting 40 days, as is the case when you don't use the emergency clause. I think the word emergency sends a different message to residents, and they always want to know why this is an emergency. And I think the terminology should be updated. It is standard throughout other cities, and it may be legal speak, but the charter review, I hope, will take a look at that section as well.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Sharp, what, if any, changes would you like to see in the charter?
So I've reviewed the charter, and I would have to agree with Lydia. The one thing, because I experienced it last year, was when there was a vacancy. It seemed to me at that time as an outsider, just from the overall process of what city council was doing, seemed to be a little bit, I guess it gave areas for concern, and we saw that in residents as they were discussing both online and in person. So I think that that needs to be more concise and a much deeper and, I guess, sequential plan to handle those types of vacancies. So that was about all I could come up with as well. So thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Strunk, what, if any, changes would you like to see in the charter?
Mr. Greco.
I'm sorry, Mr. Greco. Well, then I got you folks out of order. I beg your pardon.
That's okay. So yeah, I am the result of that vacancy. Council voted unanimously to appoint me. As everyone is aware, there was a vacancy at large. It was given to the Ward 3 council member, and then it defaulted back to Ward 3. This is what I would like to see the Charter Review Commission do. The wording currently as it stands is very broad. There was no guidance as to what City Council was really able to do. They went back on precedence. So the Charter Review would be able to, understanding this correctly, will go to the public and it will be open up to you in regards to process and wording. Any changes to the charter then will be sent back to the city and be voted on. So that is my number one concern, is to clarify that, because statistically it's going to happen again sooner or later. So we want to hear your input and make it very clear, black and white, on how to fill a vacancy, deal with it internally first and then externally to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is a question about the unsigned water contract with the City of Cleveland. What do you think will happen with this? Apparently it's been, the issue has been hanging around for a while. How will this be resolved? And we'll start with Mr. Sharp again.
So the unsigned water contract with Cleveland, it's been kind of sitting out there for quite some time. We've seen some of the battles that our neighbor, Rocky River, has gone through the courts with the water department. I believe that what we're fighting for and what council is trying to do is get the best results from that contract. There's a lot that goes into the delivering of the water, and then when you look at all the water that we send from our sewers into Rocky River, there's just that infrastructure, those pricings, all that stuff has to be reviewed. And I just don't think that we need to rush to sign the contract and make sure that we get the best for the residents. So thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Strunk, what do you think about the unsigned water contract?
Well, in the city, we all have utilities in the water, and we certainly have been functioning for a while with it not being signed, and we need to then review the details and make sure we get the best options for the residents and before we move on and finalize that contract.
Okay. Ms. DeGeorge?
So quite honestly, I'm not sure that that's an accurate statement, that we have an unsigned water contract out there. This was before my time on council, but I was in the audience when council voted not to sign the contract. I'm not sure that's the same as an unsigned contract. We do expect it to come back in front of us. One of the reasons council turned down the contract then, first of all, it's an extremely complicated issue which has not come before this current council, but was because it calls for ownership of the pipes, and then it's a 20-year contract. To be honest, in my 3.5 years on council, we haven't seen the contract, so I can't speak to it any more than that.
Thank you. Mr. Greco?
Being the HR director for the City of Rocky River, I do the hiring for the Safety Service Department, and a lot of the questions for our vacancies in that department is dealing with infrastructure. Our city has a contract with Cleveland Water, and it's been nothing but positive experiences, and we've saved millions of dollars in regards to water repairs. And I would really like to see that be honored and signed over here in the Bay Village. They've been very responsive. They've been wonderful with our residents, and in regards to emergencies and infrastructure repair, the way the contract is worded, they pretty much take care of everything. So we've had nothing but positive experience, and I would love to see that transferred over to this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have two questions here that are pretty similar. How has the federal infrastructure fund been used? And I guess this is the same as, do we have any COVID money left? Are we talking about the same thing? COVID and federal infrastructure? If there's still more money available, what would you prioritize for the use of these funds? And we'll start with Ms. DeGeorge.
Can you repeat the first part of that question?
Okay, how has the federal infrastructure fund been used? And if there's anything left, what would you prioritize for the use of the funds?
We had set up separate funds for any federal money we got, and I know you mentioned COVID. With the federal infrastructure fund money, if we have received any of it, I don't think we received all of it. And we just routinely maintain what we've done. We haven't had any major projects that speak to that. With the COVID money that we received, it went into a separate pot, and it was applied mostly to our safety services and for the employees who are working at home, to give them the equipment that they needed to work from home. Thank you.
Thank you. So apparently there is a difference between the federal infrastructure fund and the COVID money. So in any case, if there's any more money coming to Bay Village, how would you prefer to spend it? And we'll ask Mr. Greco.
So I think the piece of legislation that gave us more infrastructure money was the American Recovery Act. I do believe the dollar amount has been designated and sent to the mayor, but I don't know if the actual dollar amount has been set. It will be dispersed in 2 payments, one this year and then one for next year. And again, you're going to be sick of hearing this, but where I would like to see it spent is our sewers, our streets, our sidewalks, and the broad definition. The Recovery Act gives us a broad definition of what infrastructure is. So it's giving the cities and counties and townships leeway as to what they want to spend it on. So again, I would love to see, especially our sewer systems. I know it doesn't seem like a priority now, but being a coastal city, the state and federal EPA is constantly looking at us in regards to our water treatment plant. As everybody knows, Bay Village, we feed into the Rocky River treatment plant. We pay for that plant, we pay for that infrastructure. And I would love to see funds upgrade that, because it is a class 4 facility, meaning they take in so million gallons of waste a day. And I just want to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, so when the EPA comes and they do surprise visits, I want to make sure when they take that chlorine test that the 4 cities feeding into that plant are doing their job in maintaining infrastructure.
Okay. Mr. Strunk, what would you like to do if more money comes your way?
I took a look at the capital budget, and in 2022, I think there's $1.6 million worth of road improvements, just new roads on Wolf Road, Lake Road, and Ashton Lane. And then if you carry it out until the following year, there's about $800,000 projected out on that capital budget for the next several years after that. So certainly we have to find ways to fund those projects. And the other thing would be the infrastructures. We've lived in Bay a long time. We always hear about people having their sewer issues to back up. It's only getting older. Every day it's getting older. We're going to have more and more problems. So we need to be able to put the money aside and spend the money and get that taken care of over the next 2 or 5 years.
Thank you. And Mr. Sharp, how would you spend the money?
So when you look at the infrastructure, you know, one of the things that was presented before council was the possibility of burying a 1.5 million gallon tank in Cahoon Park to offset the water that's running down the pipes on Wolf Road to alleviate basement flooding. So when the water level in the pipes were reaching a certain level, that valve would swing open and fill that tank and alleviate, because we can make the pipes bigger, we can make the pump stronger, but we can only send so much water to Rocky River. So I'd love to see some of that infrastructure money, if possible, help offset the cost of that project if the city decides to move forward. As far as the ARPA funds, I work in cybersecurity, and I've been helping counties like Franklin County, Delaware County, taking that funds, getting that out to cities, to help with cybersecurity. Not so much on the intrusion side, but on the recovery side. Ransomware is real, and even though we're a small city tucked on the lake, on the north part of Ohio, our data is what we live on. So finding ways to expand our protection of our data, the access of the data, and making sure that we have immutable copies. So that would be another way that I would look to maybe use ARPA funds that were given to Cuyahoga County.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, do you see any opportunities for cooperation with other West Shore and Northeast Ohio communities and governments that will benefit Bay citizens? Do you think any existing collaborations have been harmful? And we'll start with Mr. Strunk.
The local cities around us, I think for 20, 25 years, we've all been trying to help out and consolidate operations, like in fire operations and fire emergency recall and the police department. And it really, I think those things have been happening, and it's helped, but nothing on our budget. And I think the further collaborations with Westlake, Rock River, North Olmsted, and even Avon Lake, that we can probably try to consolidate some other city services. As the city's budget, about 68% of the budget is for human resources. So whenever you can consolidate those human resources and maybe have a person that you can share amongst cities versus all being on the city of Bay Village, we can certainly save money in tax dollars that way.
Okay. Mr. Sharp, opportunities for collaboration or cooperation, or is there anything that to you seems like it was a bad idea?
There isn't anything in the 26 years that we've lived here that I can point to that would be considered a bad idea. What I would love to see is maybe two areas of collaboration when you look at our neighboring neighborhoods, our neighboring cities. Number one is where we can connect parks, bike lanes, walking trails, things of that nature. We should take a look at that. Anytime that you're outside in the spring, the summer, the fall, people are out jogging, walking, riding bikes, and anytime that we can connect that, we have the beautiful parks from Cuyahoga Valley National Parks in Huntington. We should be able to expand that in our city parks and connect and make sure we have bike lanes, bike trails, walking trails. The other, I just think in the winter, we've all experienced some very bad winters here. And I think that we need to make sure that we're collaborating with our neighboring cities to make sure that when we look to purchase road salt and we're helping with services and snow removal, that if we need help or they need help or we need salt or they need salt and we have it, we have to collaborate more because people have to work, kids have to get to school, and we need to make sure that our roads are clean and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And have we reached number 4 yet? No. Are we? I'm getting lost in the haze here. Mr. Greco, have you had a chance to speak?
There we go.
Please.
I'm glad this question was asked. The main collaboration I would like to see is collaboration of our dispatching on the west side communities. Some cities have their local dispatching in the police and fire stations, and some are regionalized in Westcom. And I see that the biggest priority or the biggest concern for this collaboration is retention and training. When you're hiring dispatching in your individual cities are receiving their own training, and the wages, are not paying that well, so we're not retaining these employees. If the cities, they are currently working on it, and I'd like to see them to step up the efforts in getting together and collaborate in regards to making one central dispatching for police and fire. So everyone is trained with the same policies and procedures. There's standardized pay, which will help be more competitive. And in regards to emergencies, when a city goes down, when their phone system goes down, it's defaulted here or it's defaulted there to another city. Where if we have one regionalized dispatching center, I believe it will just enhance the safety and security for all of our Western Shore communities. So that's where I'd like to see that.
Thank you. And Ms. DeGeorge, how about collaboration and cooperation with other cities?
So our fire department and police department already get called to other cities when there's a need for assistance, as they will come to Bay Village when there is a need for assistance. To make it anything more formal, this has been discussed before, and residents do not really want to rely on a shared police department or fire department that's located in another city. They'd like our safety services in our town. So I don't see that type of collaboration happening. As it stands, I think we are probably already short-staffed in our service department, and our HR person is already a part-time person. So I don't foresee any collaboration there either. I think we are a small community. We've been fortunate to be able to afford the care that we have, and I think we can sustain that going forward. But if an opportunity presented itself from a West Shore community to collaborate on this or that, I certainly would consider it.
Okay, thank you. And I believe this is our last question. No, there are more coming. Good, but here's the question. What is your plan for use of the old library building once the new branch opens next year? And we'll start this one with Mr. Greco.
Oh, all right. Two options, actually. I'm a fan of senior services. I'm highly involved over in Rocky River and helping with the senior center over there. And my main concern is, are the facilities adequate currently where our senior center is? And I've spoken to the mayor a little bit about this and what the plans would be for that building, and I really would like to see our senior services expanded in regards to activities, a technology room, exercise room, even, a stage with for plays and performances. I mean, there's a lot more room over there. So that's my number one priority, is expanding the senior services for the city with that building.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. DeGeorge, sorry. Plans for the old library?
So I live in that area, and I've spoken to many of the residents in that area. And there are a few options that we've discussed. One would be to move the existing senior center into that building, move the rec department, which moved into the community house, into the existing senior center, and then give the community house back to the community as it was intended. That's one option. The other option would be to sell the property and assure that there would be smaller senior living homes built there, whether they're attached or single family. It would fit in with the neighborhood because it's already a residential area. What I really prefer not to do is for the city to incur another municipal building. There are expenses to upgrade the building as it is now when we inherit it. There will always be maintenance expenses for it. If we create another level of rec or whatever, then we're incurring expenses for personnel and insurance and retirement. So that would be my last option, is for the city to do something with that building. And I would like to focus on possibly redeveloping that land into something that more residents could use.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sharp.
My concern is more for the children. Anybody who goes past Normandy School or past the middle school in the morning or during pickup realizes what Wolf Road is like, realizes what Normandy is like, as kids are darting, people are coming both directions. These are accidents waiting to happen. I personally would love to see a complete redesign of that student pickup and drop off. And I think that rear property where the library sits and that adjacent parking lot, we could allow the school to remove that library and create a better drop-off and pickup zone so we're not clogging Wolf Road. We have people going left of center to try and get around the people waiting in the street. It is a nightmare, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. So I would prefer making it safer and easier for parents and children to get to school and leave school, and we gotta take a look at Normandy Road too. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Strunk.
Well, there certainly is not a lot of opportunities in Bay Village to have a vacant building or a vacant piece of land that's centrally located. Moving the senior center there, I agree with that. That makes some sense. It would also give them an opportunity to get in and out of there. But there's also possibilities of letting the school system use it for another building, or possibly where their administration could go, and that would open up Dover Center for future use.
Okay. Some of you have mentioned seniors, and that's what the next question is about. How would you help seniors to make it easier for them to remain in Bay? And I guess we'll start with Ms. DeGeorge.
So this goes hand in hand with a residential review board for me. The bungalows, for example, on my block were built in the 40s. They average 1,477 square feet. They're about 1.75 stories high, or about 19 feet, on 7,000 square foot lots. The market values range about $200,000 and up. But on blocks like mine, and there are many of them within Bay Village, these types of bungalows are being replaced with 5,000 square foot homes, twice the height, or about, because you're only allowed 35 feet, and the costs are $700,000 and up. I think if we put something into place that would restrict or regulate size, how big of a house you could build on a small parcel, then we would be saving, whether you want to call them starter homes, homes for downsizing, and we would be retaining a wide range of prices for residents. And I think that's key, that seniors would like to see these smaller homes preserved. So anything short of, again, not building homes on the school property, we need to preserve what we have that they can downsize to.
Thank you. Mr. Greco, how would you help seniors to remain in Bay?
So I currently sit on the accreditation board at the Rocky River Senior Center, meaning that the state comes in and evaluates the services and then gives them a rating, a high standards rating in regards to the services provided. So what I'd like to see, I want to take that experience and bring it into Bay Village in regards to two things. Services provided by our senior center or the city. Right now we have some snow shoveling and some, transportation. That's about it, really. I'd like to see them expand to make, social work, helping out with financial resources or financial help, and just making our senior center more of a resource for this particular population. And along that, we need to provide, like Lydia was touching on, senior housing or senior living. A lot of these individuals are one income, are unfortunately low income, and I believe it's a reflection of a city or municipality in providing that sort of community or residential housing, and I think we need to do the best we can in order to provide that. So again, it's coming down to the services we provide through our department, and then what we can do to help provide and help create and maintain the housing choices in the city.
Mr. Strunk, what would you do to help seniors to stay in Bay?
I agree with Mr. Greco as far as really expanding the services that are available. I see a lot of seniors, I have a lot of senior clients that come in for their taxes, and I talk to them, and they all want to stay in Bay Village, but what they don't have is enough help to maintain their house, to keep it going. I believe through service organizations like the Rotary, the Kiwanis, those are just 2 examples, but there's about 10 or 15 services. We can provide additional services to those seniors on an ad hoc basis through those organizations. And whenever our Rotary Club is asked for funds to help and do that, we are to jump in, and I know the Kiwanis are willing to do that too. I lost my train of thought on, there was one other aspect, but I'm done.
We're talking about how to keep seniors comfortable in Bay.
That's fine.
Okay, all right then. And Mr. Sharp, how would you help keep seniors in Bay?
Well, first of all, I think we have to widen the umbrella when we talk about Remain in Bay, because it's not only seniors, but it's our first-time home buyers that are now looking for that second house. When you look at young families that move into Bay and buy one of these bungalows that are very well kept or in very safe neighborhoods, as their families grow and they reach a point where they start to look for that 4-bedroom house that their family now needs, it's difficult to find because their pay has not increased with the way that the house is. Now, I live here, and I've lived here 26 years, so I'm more than happy to see my home price continue to rise and continue to be more valuable. But I do agree that the tear down and rebuilds on some of these streets where there are current bungalows, and you look at Glen Park and you look at Knickerbocker, it's destroying the momentum, even the tiniest momentum we have to give options for seniors and for second-time home buyers. So as a city, yes, we love the larger houses, we want the larger tax base, but we can't be so short-sighted. We have to make sure that seniors have an option and second-time home buyers have options as well. We can't keep losing them to our neighboring communities. Thank you.
Thank you. This one may turn out to be the last question. Many of our city ordinances date back to the 1950s. Would you support or oppose having our city's codes evaluated by outside experts to determine which need to be updated to meet the needs of 2021? And we'll start with Mr. Greco.
So the evaluation of the city ordinances, we have the charter review next year, in which that's an appointed panel, and our law director will be on that as well. And I don't think we will need an outside individual come in to evaluate all that. We'll have the member-appointed panel by the mayor and our law director, whose expertise is in municipal law. Rocky River went through the charter review last year, and everything went very smoothly. It was an open forum. Everyone will be able to come into each individual meeting. Each section, each department is reviewed. Each part of the city law is reviewed with the law director, and that particular department head is there as well, asking for changes. So bringing in an outsider like that may not have a full understanding on how the city functions. So I do not agree with that.
Okay, Ms. DeGeorge.
So the charter review, it's my understanding, it does not evaluate all of our ordinances, if that's what we're talking about here. Our ordinance book is like this thick. And we actually talked about this recently and decided it would take years to accomplish this and that it would probably be cost prohibitive. But I was like, yeah, let's do it, because our charters our ordinances are not only outdated, but there's duplication, sometimes they're at war with each other, and we don't realize that until we actually have to work with them. So I think it would require further discussion. I would support looking at the cost, the years. I do agree, as was said here tonight and has been said in the past, that anytime you get an outside company, they don't really know us. But I think they could get the ball rolling. I believe our ordinances do need cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strunk?
I believe that we have very competent people in City Hall and on council, that we can look at the ordinances and pose it to residents and get a good dialogue back. I don't necessarily know if we need to have an outside source come in and help us decide that factor. I think it is a role of City Council to identify, as they come across, the ordinances that need to be fixed and cleaned up. And every council meeting, there are new ordinances and adjustments to those ordinances. So I think that we can handle it on that way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sharp?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think collectively, there is enough experience and intelligence that type of code review can be handled within the city limits. Bringing in outside quote-unquote experts, it just kind of gives me pause. And again, I'm not labeling outside experts as dangerous because they would have to be vetted, but I just think collectively, the intelligence and the passion and the care and love for the city is already there inside the walls of City Hall, and I think it can be accomplished internally.
Okay, thank you. Do we have another question? Good, thank you. It's okay. Okay, this has come up a little bit before. Some of the city's trees are old and losing branches. Do you see the city handling tree trimming on residential property in the same manner as sidewalk replacement is handled? Let's see, let's start with Ms. DeGeorge.
The city cannot handle trimming trees on private property because it's private property. We are currently reviewing the tree ordinance, and those are some of the issues that we're coming up against. The city tree canopy is being replaced on city property, but when it comes to private property, there are property rights. So if I understood the question correctly, do I see the city trimming trees on private property?
That's the question, yeah.
Yeah, no. That's all.
Okay. That's pretty cut and dried, as it were. Where are we? Mr. Strunk.
I would agree with Lydia on that. It is a private owner's rights on their property, and I don't think the city should infringe on that. But I do believe, 20 years ago or so, there was a program here in Bay, maybe longer, 25, where there was a gentleman in the maintenance area who walked around and circled your houses and gave you a list of things that they saw that needed to be updated or corrected. It wasn't changing your color of your place or anything like that, but I know, like, we had a few things around our house that they recommended on getting fixed. And so I would probably encourage that kind of program with residents, again, to have somebody go around and identify the shortcomings in residents' homes and gently encourage them to fix that.
Very well. Mr. Sharp.
So, I think that our reach into private property trees would probably stop at maybe limiting the time of the year that trees can be trimmed to stop the spread of disease. I think that has to be considered. Okay. The other thing is that if somebody wants to tear down a tree on their private property, that's their right. It's their property. But I think as a city, we should work with those homeowners and offer them a pathway to donate a tree to be planted somewhere else in the city and we can even put a plaque on that tree who it was donated by. We have to replace every time we remove. You know, the illuminating company comes on my property and they trim my trees that are getting close to the power lines. I happen to live in an area of Bay Village that when the wind changes direction, we lose power. You know, and I've proposed that we work with the illuminating company because there are certain sections of Bay, like where I live, that lose power 3, 4, 5 times a year. I'd really love to see, from the illuminating company the cost in the areas of repairs over the last 25 years of the power outages in Bay, the cost to them to repair and overtime, and what it would cost in some of those areas to do measures to lessen the frequency. And if the return on investment for the illuminating company is less than 25 years, why wouldn't they make those changes? But somebody has to push it, somebody needs the data, and we have to work on that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Greco, I believe you said you are very much in favor of the tree canopy.
Yes, I am, but we'll need to focus on this. The answer to the question given is no, the city should not help. It's a complete insurance issue. But where to begin is with the tree ordinance. I mean, that's a good start, especially with the public input, plain and simple. There's a lot of discussion online, a lot of back and forth regarding what the city can do, what we do with private property owners, what we should do with the aging tree canopy, how can we get trees donated. I mean, we need just to start with the tree ordinance, have an open public discussion on what the city is able to do, and then so we're not infringing on your right on your property and telling you when to trim, when not to trim, when to plant, when not to plant. I mean, it's a whole discussion that needs to be had. So, thank you.
Thank you. And here is our last question, and I want to thank you all for being brief and succinct, because we've gotten to more questions than we anticipated, and this is great. So the last question is, what should be the relationship of council to mayor and the administration? And let's start with Mr. Strunk. Yeah.
Well, in a city like Bay Village, you know, people on council are part of the community. The mayor is part of the community. We need to have a working relationship, a cordial relationship, and we need to enhance both our functions in the city. So I think we need to encourage that and maintain that, and it will only help our community if we work together.
Okay. Mr. Greco?
This is a good question. I am in constant communication with the city directors, those individuals who run the city departments. I think it's very important. They are the frontline workers, especially in police and fire. I always give credit where credit is due. I am constantly in contact with them in regarding to any resident issue. I pass on any, accolades or compliments at the council meetings. I wanted to make sure my counterparts know what the city workers are doing and accomplishing for the residents. And I would just hope moving forward, if I'm fortunate to be elected officially, working through the budget process, that everyone is open with each other in regards to what projects are needed, what the priorities are for each department. And when it just comes down to it, there should be no just talking on a Monday night at council meeting. This dialogue should be going through pretty much 7 days a week. We're on call 24/7. When you guys email or call me, I try to respond as quickly as I can when I get a hold of the city personnel. So communication all around. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sharp, what should be the relationship of council to the mayor and administration?
It has to be solid. It has to be tight. Council, being an auxiliary police officer for the city of Bay Village, I talk to the chief of police, I talk to the lieutenant. I understand that there are things that they could use and that they want in that department. That information has to make it to council. It has to get over there so that the police force can continue to do their job and change with the times that are required. When you look at the services, you know, understanding how we can better work as a council for services to integrate with the residents that we represent. 100%. You know, when the city knocked on my door a few years ago and said that I had to have 2 pieces of sidewalk replaced, they said, you are in charge of maintaining the sidewalk. I come to find out later they were in error when they told me that the city had to do it. I was not allowed to get outside quotes. Okay? This type of working between city council and the services and all the administration has to be fluid, bi-directional, because it's the residents that we represent that either benefit or don't benefit from those services. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is one more question, but this question has been answered already. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. George, I skipped over you. Excuse me.
Thank you. The relationship between council and the administration, in my experience, is very good. I feel free to contact anyone at any time with any questions or concerns. I feel free to, when I don't know the answer, at least I know who to send that resident to have their question answered. The relationship between council and the mayor, I think, is greatly improved from previous administration, but I also believe that there needs to be boundaries. Council does not essentially work for the mayor, we work with the mayor. We are elected to work for the residents. And without those boundaries, there are no checks and balances. So good working relationships are important, and I think we have them, but we also need to be respectful of each other's duties and responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. Everybody got a chance to speak there now? Okay. So as I was starting to say, there were several questions, additional questions submitted regarding a residential architectural board of review. The candidates answered that question, and it's in the voter guide on Vote 411. So this is a good opportunity for me to remind everybody that vote411.org is a wonderful resource for answering all your questions about voting, about where your precinct is, where your voting booth is. Please take a look at Vote 411 and tell all your friends to do the same. So we come to the end of the question time, and it's time for our candidates to make closing statements. So let's start with Mr. Greco. Will you make a closing statement of what? 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Say your bit. Say your piece.
So I'm asking for your support. I've been a Bay Village resident for 14 years. I'm currently married to my husband of over 2 years, who honorably served in the U.S. Coast Guard for over 20 years. I possess my master's in public administration with a concentration of state and local government. Local politics or local government functions have been a passion of mine, and I'm fortunate enough to serve in that capacity in the neighboring city. This has been a fantastic experience working as city council. I am answering questions ranging from sewer backup to sidewalks to trees over hanging on my neighbor's yard. What do I do? How do I politely say I want to go trim it? To I found this lost dog. To I got called down, the tree branch just went through my roof, I don't know who to call. All the way down to electrical emergencies. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I just want to continue serving my ward in that capacity. You know, it's pretty much a 24/7 job. I wake up, check my emails, and I'm getting texts during the day, and you just never know what comes your way. With my background in local government, I feel that I have the experience, I know I have the experience in where to direct you if you need an answer quickly. I make sure you get your answer quickly. It may not be the one you want to hear, but I make sure that you are directed to the appropriate person, and if we can't find that person, I will find them with you. So again, I ask for your support, and if you have any questions whatsoever, please contact me or email me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strunk.
I too would like you to support me for the position of Ed Council. I will apply my 32 plus years as a self-employed certified public accountant. Every year I have to go through 40 hours of continuing ed, which includes ethics. I have to go through a peer review of my peers every 3 years. And so that requires me to stay informed, stay active, and of all the professions, CPAs are the ones that where clients, customers, individuals will ask more questions to a CPA than their doctor, their attorney. It's just what they do. Every day I never know what the phone call is going to come in at, and I'm going to apply that kind of concept, those skills that I've honed in taking care of customers and taking care of the residents of the Bay. So again, I ask you for your help, support in November.
Okay, Mr. George.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. I'd like to thank my volunteers and supporters, and to my husband for his steadfast encouragement. His belief in me is the best, and it's not just because he's my husband. Anyway, so City Council has administration, department managers, and staff, and this kind of goes back to the last question, city engineers and each other to call upon as we address multiple issues. The resources and relationships that I have cultivated, I have done so to better serve you. I'm independent, yet I will continue to work collaboratively because council is teamwork. Ward 2 residents should be able to seamlessly keep moving and not have to hit the pause or the restart button. Tonight has shown that I am just one of Bay's biggest cheerleaders and devoted fan, but I am the qualified Ward 2 candidate. I face challenges with you knowing that life is good in Bay, yet there is room for flexibility and to meet or exceed your expectations. We have made great strides in the last 4 years, and we do not have the time to start over. Endorse me and achievements will not be lost. Voting for me will continue to elevate your voice for true senior housing options, balanced budgets, saving the tree canopy, green space, and continued monitoring and ongoing maintenance and improvements to our city. Years ago, someone said to me, "Don't tell them, show them." Tonight, I have shown you why I'm qualified to retain my seat. For that, I thank you, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you. And now Mr. Sharp.
So I want to thank the League for hosting this forum, and I also wanted to thank those of you who came here tonight and those of you that are watching online. This type of question and answer, this type of communication shouldn't happen every 2 years, and especially with just opposed candidates. If I'm elected, okay, we're going to institute what I'm going to call the Heart of Bay Quarterly Town Hall. And it won't just be for Ward 2 or Ward 3 residents, but it will be for all members, all residents of Bay, because I can't overemphasize the importance of remembering that we represent a ward. And in that ward are taxpayers, there's families, there are people that have questions and concerns about what's coming before council, how their tax dollars are being spent. So once a quarter, we'll get together in person, virtually, whatever the science is dictating at that time, so that I can share with you what's coming before council and get your feedback, and you can also share with me what it is that's important to you. There's a difference. And again, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the phrase, "that's the way we've always done things." You know, when residents plead before city council, as they did in the Red Oak extension, and pleaded before city council to vote no because of the fears of flooding and everything else for the people that live there, When asked why my opponent voted yes for it, his only answer was there was no legal reason not to. Listening to the residents, having that communication is the centerpiece of why I'm running. I appreciate your support come November.
Thank you, all of you, for giving very thoughtful and succinct answers to our questions. Thank you to everyone in the audience for participating in this forum. You've been a most attentive audience, and I hope you've all learned something and help make up your minds how you're going to vote. The election is November 2nd. The polls will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And you still have time to request a mail-in ballot if you prefer. There are also several hours of early voting available at the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections office, which is at 30th and Euclid downtown in Cleveland. And please go to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections website for directions on these processes. I want to thank also our timers for being right on top of the situation, and our question screeners for helping to organize the questions, and to our runners for running and picking up all those questions from everyone. It's all good teamwork around, and it has been a very pleasant evening. So the only thing I have left to say is please stay behind a little bit in the lobby. Our candidates will be manning tables, and I'm sure you'll be able to pick up some more campaign literature. You'll be able to ask questions that you didn't have a chance to ask during this forum. But our time is up, and we thank you again very much for attending.